Hi everyone, it's Monica, and welcome back to Tailor-Made Cards for You. Well, today's video is all about washi tape. Now, I have to admit, I am a washi tape hoarder. I love washi tape. I love the way it looks. I love the way that it feels. I put it on my envelopes, I put it on my wrapping paper, and I even create cards with it. And I wanted to share with you today some cards and some ideas for using some of your washi tape. I also have some little trinkets that I picked up at Tuesday morning, and some words from the Holtz collection, along with some stamping. So there's a variety of cards here that I'm going to be sharing with you. So my video is going to be a little bit longer than usual. But I wanted to share with you several options for your washi tape. Many of us typically will just put a one-line piece of washi tape maybe to border a card, but there's so many more other ideas that you can use your washi tape for, and that's what I want to share with you today. So let's go ahead and get going. Now for this first technique, I'm using several of my washi tapes, and I'm working primarily with my reds, my greens, and my blacks. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a design using some of my washi tape. But I also want to leave some white space because I want to use one of those sentiments that I got from one of Holtz's new Christmas collections. Now, when you're working with your washi tape, there's a lot of designs that you can go with. What I'm working with today is kind of a diagonal design, and when I'm laying out my washi tape, I want to make sure that some of my washi tape is a little bit longer than the prior one, because that's the tape that I'm going to use to go in the other direction, and I'll show you what I mean by that in just a minute. I also like to cut my washi tape when I'm working on designs. Now, ordinarily when I'm working with my washi tape, I don't mind jaggedy edges. I'll just rip it, and I like the rough looking look that it creates when you tear your washi tape. But when I'm going for a specific design and I need to match up some of my edges, then I will cut my washi tape. That way I have a nice clean edge, and it will mat very specifically against my prior washi tape. Now, as you can see, that green tape, the third piece that I placed, I actually mounted it right up against that green and the white one, and that's what I meant about it being a little bit longer. You want to create a little bit of an edge so that way your washi tape can feed off of it and you can start working in the opposite direction. And as you can see, I'm just really going in a couple directions here, but you can pick up and change your direction often. The corner can easily be going up and down. I can't remember exactly how I did it, but just work off of your prior washi tape, and then just make sure you have nice crisp edges. And that's really all there is to it, to this design. You just want to get some washi tape that will complement each other and have some fun with it. All right, so now that I have my design, it's time to pick out my sentiment. And the sentiment that I'm going to pick from is from the new Holtz set called Christmastime. As I had mentioned, I only bought a couple of sets. I actually bought the Christmastime set, which is the one with all of the sentiments. And then I also bought Yuletide. So I'm going to be sharing some cards over the next several days using both of these stamp sets. What I really love about the Christmastime sentiment stamp set is the different sizes of sentiments and the different fonts. When the releases came out, I didn't see a lot of excitement over the sentiment stamps, but I was probably one of the few ones that got excited over it because you don't see a lot of sentiments like this. They're very vintage looking, which is definitely up my alley. And the fonts are bigger than you're typically used to working with. So you can actually use them as a focal point on your cards. So that's some of the designs that I'm going to be creating this Christmas season, using these stamps as my focal point. So the sentiment that I decided on for this card is greetings. And I just love that big G. It's just awesome. But one thing you want to be careful of is when you are stamping over washi tape, it will smear a little bit. So you want to be careful with that. I think I came in with some clear embossing powder because I love how that actually pops up your images whenever you stamp, and it also will dry it, so it will prevent the smearing problem that you may have stamping over washi tape. Now, one of the things that I really love to do is to mat my cards onto black cardstock. I really like the white against the black. I think it's very classic and it looks really crisp and clean. So after I had finished stamping this card and putting my washi tape, I decided to trim it down 1/4 inch because I did want to be able to use my black cardstock as a mat. And after I had trimmed out the right side and the bottom, I had an idea. So you have some pieces left over that have the multiple washi tape, and I thought it was a really cool looking piece. So I decided to actually incorporate it into my design. So that's something that you can think about as well. If you have washi tape, and you can always trim it down and create designs with that. In fact, I kind of feel my wheels turning right now, and I'm coming up with some actual ideas that I can create a card just with this particular technique. So you might see a card with some strips of cut down paper using some washi tape in the future. I'm not sure. We'll see exactly where my creativity takes me on that. And then after I added that piece, I of course went to matting my white cardstock onto the black cardstock, which is, like I said, something that I really like to do. And I just trimmed down some black cardstock with my tonic guillotine trimmer. And then as a final touch, after I had it mounted onto my black cardstock, I decided to add some Nuvo drops. Now this is just a last minute decision that I made. You definitely could have called it a day after you mounted your card onto your white cardstock, but I wanted to add a little bit of glitter, and that's why I decided to add my my Nuvo drops. All right, so that was the first design that I wanted to share with you, was just basically creating your background using your washi tape. Now I want to show you how to incorporate some of your washi tape into some stamped images that you may have. Okay, so I'm going to share with you a little trick when I'm working with washi tape. I like to find paper or stamps that go horizontal and vertical, and those give me kind of a template. So I'm going to go ahead and speed up the video while I put together the top part of this card, and then I'll come back in the end to finish it off with you. Okay, so once I had all of my washi tape adhered, I went ahead and started just folding it over the edges. And this is really nice because you don't want to necessarily cut it because then your tape might come up. So just leave a little extra on the edges so you can fold it over. And then once I had them all folded over, I decided to actually create more of an edged look. So I used one of my new dies that I recently picked up. And I'll make sure that I list all of the product, including this die, below. All right. So again, I'm mounting it onto some black cardstock because that is just what I like to do. And then I'm going to create a sentiment using one of the stamps from the Tim Holtz collection. Now, as you can see, this stamp is a little bit oversized, but it has a nice space in between the Christmas greetings. So it's a stamp that can easily be stamped and then cut in half. And that's what I'm going to show you what I did here. Now, this stamp reminds me of those word chips that Tim Holtz has. So you could easily take some red cardstock and stamp on it with some white ink and some white embossing powder. And you can probably replicate some of those word chips using your Christmas greetings. And that's kind of the idea that I had, but I wanted to do it in the black and white rather than the red and the white because I thought it would stand out a little bit more and it would match my background. So I used some of my anti-static what is that thing called? It's the anti-static, so that way your embossing powder doesn't stick to your paper. And then I stamped it using some white ink. And then I came in and I added some white embossing powder. And then I used my heating tool to dry my embossing powder. Now, one thing I need to caution you about using white embossing powder on black cardstock is if you don't use the anti-static and you get any of that white embossing powder on the paper itself, it is going to show up. So be really careful. You probably want to take a dry paintbrush and just brush some of that excess embossing powder off so that way you'll have a nice crisp image. And that's what I ended up doing ultimately, is just getting a white or a paintbrush and then just kind of taking it off so that way it doesn't dry when I use my heating tool. So after you have it dried with your heat embossing tool, you want to go ahead and trim it down using your trimmer. Now I'm using my guillotine trimmer because I like how sharp of an edge I get when I cut my paper. And I just cut it as close to my sentiment as possible, and then I just sliced it right down the middle. So I really wanted to have this greeting pop up just a little bit. So I did come in with some foam tape to add to the back of my greeting to make it pop up just a little bit. And then I ended up adhering it to some white cardstock. I have to say, I really like the way that this card turned out. I like the pops of color in the background, and the black and white sentiment really make it stand out. Now, if you are brave enough, you don't necessarily have to have a stamp with horizontal and vertical lines. You can easily create this type of a background. But I like the contrast between the washi tape and the numbers on this particular stamp. So I really like the way that it works. And then, of course, I went in and I just rounded the corners just to make it more of a finished look. Now, after I had this card adhered to my base, my white cardstock, I wanted to go ahead and add just a little bit more shimmer. And this is where I decided to cut out the number 25 and add it to the card. It really was a nice finishing touch. Now, you don't necessarily have to add a number, but I thought that the 25 really kind of pulled the number background together to make a finished look. Okay, so hopefully I've given you some ideas using some washi tape on some of your Christmas cards this year. As always, I will leave a list of all the products that I've used to create the card along with the links to the stores. If you've enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave me a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We are about at the halfway point of my video series, and I plan on doing videos all through the month of November. Once we get past the midpoint, I do plan on starting to give some giveaways, and my first giveaway is a really great one. So make sure that you have left comments on all of the videos so that way you'll have a better chance to win some of my prizes. All right, everybody, thanks so much for stopping by, and we'll see you again next time.